Hi there, author and storyteller Carolyn Stearns here. It's been a while since I've given you an update. I've been working on a bunch of projects and they kind of get mixed up and do a little here and a little there but I have to focus because I have a book coming out. This will be book 3. My first one, How Far Is Safe, launched a year ago yesterday, and that was an exciting event to have a book launch just as we were coming out of COVID. We found a semi outdoor location at a donkey barn and museum. A donkey is the character in that book and his little boy. And so that was the beginning of such a great adventure because I had been banking manuscripts for quite a while. So uh, I got the second book out this February, and that's called Mystic Girl. And that one's a real mixture of my world as a storyteller, performing the oral narrative, and telling Viking and Norse mythology, which are great stories. And then mixed up with my love of horses. There are Morgan horses in that story, and it takes place in the most beautiful setting, Mystic, Connecticut, one of my favorite places to visit. Not far from where I live, a seaside town with the Mystic River running through, and um, tall ships there as it's home to Mystic Seaport, the Museum of America and the Sea. And if you're traveling in the Northeast, it's a must see. So, this next book, book 3, is a collection of 13 spooky stories, and they are a real blend of occurrences that I've experienced, of history, of historical fiction, of places I've been and seen, of haunting type experience, and a heavy dose of imagination and filling out those stories. So they're just that spooky. Now let's talk a little bit about spooky. Spooky isn't gory, it's not horror. It's just the kind of story that makes you question, could that really happen? What if? Is there something else? Is there a spirit world? Are there ghosts? And believe, don't believe, spooky stories are so popular in the fall, and I've always had opportunities to tell them. And I had written this collection down, and it's been tweaked many times, and just kind of coming to that final collection of 13. Had to pick and choose and leave a couple out, which is good because I wanted to give you a really broad range of types of stories. And these would be great for a storyteller to remake into a local setting and tell their version of it. And they're great for sharing at the campfire. They're great for reading, um, with the lights down low or by a candlelight or a fireplace. And a lot of them are historical, not all, but a lot, or referencing the history of a place. And they're mostly from around Eastern Connecticut. There's one from Farmington, Connecticut, where the Connecticut witch trials happen. There is one from Salem, Connecticut, Gardner Lake, another beautiful spot. I like to choose these places that speak to me or I've had some introduction or connection to. And so you'll see that in the book. The foundation of these stories, though, that's my childhood. Now, I grew up in an 18th century colonial salt box style house. There it is. It was built in 1751, prior to the American Revolution, by a gentleman, Amos Richardson, who became a captain in the American Revolution. And his family ran a tavern there in the house in the front room. And there was a cellar stairs down to this little half basement dirt underneath it. And I'm sure they stored barrels of rum or whatever they were serving. Rum was pretty common and popular. Hard ciders were really popular. Um, the fermented drinks like that, they didn't go bad. They didn't make you sick. So they were pretty common. Now, this house, when my family moved in here, was in pretty rough shape. But over the years, my father worked and worked and worked and worked to restore it to its former grandeur, and in much appreciation of the original carpenter, Amos Richardson's beautiful work in woodworking to build that house. And so I grew up a rather feral child on that hillside, and we had quite a reign of territory. We covered trails and paths and hayfields and woodlands and rivers and ponds, fishing and biking and hiking and massive games of hide and seek, and our own neighborhood version that we called Spook, where everybody hid and you spent the whole evening until the parents called you in, just trying to scare each other, run off, hide again, do it again. Um, and that was a real neighborhood favorite at the time. So that basis brought me into my appreciation of history and the fun of telling a spooky story based in history. The other piece of it was the Nathan Hale homestead, the family home of our American patriot Nathan Hale, who died in the Revolution. And this is a image, an old image of his family home from back during my childhood. And those trees are now gone, but were there at the time. And I got to work there from age 14 on as a docent, a tour guide, and met so many interesting people, and really got to contemplate and understand the history of that time and that period, a rather wealthy family and their farm, and the sacrifice they made in losing that son in the Revolution. So you will hear more of Nathan and his best friend Asher Wright in my book. So that's just a little update. It's coming for the fall. I am pushing to have it out right in the early part of October so we can have lots of fun with spooky stories this fall and from here on. And then as we'll get that one rolling, and the next one we'll be ready to get busy working on, and that one is called Core, and it's about generational transition on family orchard and a family farm. So I'm looking forward to bringing more of my writing and books and stories to you. And you can always find me at carolynsternsstoryteller.com. Thanks for listening today. That's my update, and I'll be talking with you soon.